This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Let's chat with Tom Murphy now here on the Morning Rush. Tom, I know that Tommy made some chili during the snow. Do you have a specific food that you like to make when it's cold outside and it's snowing?
Well, I mean, there's obviously snow ice cream, which my kids used to love, but we didn't do that this time. You know what we do? We put a pork butt in, cut off a lot of the fat and put a pork butt in the Instant Pot. And, boy, that'll feed you for several days. That's
Instant
good stuff,
Pot.
too. Instant Pots are the bomb.
Yeah, we got one of those. I never thought about putting a pork butt in there, though.
Oh, look it up, man. Really good stuff.
That sounds good. What have you learned about Arkansas's newest defensive assistant?
Well, yeah, Duron Wilson. He was playing football at Southern Miss only a decade ago, so he's still pretty young in the industry. Obviously, his cousin, and one of the bios I saw online called Frank his uncle, but apparently they're cousins. Who's the head coach at UTSA before Jeff Traylor, and went over to McNeese State. He's a New Orleans guy, so you can tell Sam Pittman's recruiting philosophy, man, is to, Texas, Georgia, South Louisiana, which Arkansas has kind of had a long-standing connection to South Louisiana, but I think they had been missing a coach with ties to down there for a little while. But now they got Wilson in, and he'll be probably the lowest paid assistant on defense because of his age in the industry and everything. But hopefully they get a dynamic recruiter, and they can retain some of their personnel on the back end, because that certainly has been an issue with the current team.
So how do you evaluate a guy that was an analyst, whether or not he's going to be able to recruit? I guess you can lean on what he did at McNeese State, check up on some of that. But, we know if you can't recruit, you don't get to stay at Arkansas. That's kind of Sam Pittman's unspoken philosophy. I mean, he's shown that through his hiring and firing practices. How do you evaluate a guy that wasn't recruiting while he was at Florida? How do you know what he can do?
Well, you have to go back to his time at UTSA when he was fresh into the industry, and then McNeese. And, of course, he was defensive coordinator at McNeese, so you can get an idea of, the schemes he favored and all that. But in this system, I think Travis Williams and Marcus Woodson are going to be the brain trust, so to speak, with input from Sam Pittman. And Duron's I think it helps that he's been a defensive coordinator before. So, obviously, he overlapped with Deke Adams, so it makes you think that Deke had input in vetting Duron's character and what have you to fill the position. So I'm sure he's got a track record in recruiting from, it might not be a gargantuan, but he knows he went to O. Perry Walker in New Orleans, which is a powerhouse football school down there. And I'm sure he's got a lot of inroads in the New Orleans recruiting. And, you can go through the list of South Louisiana standouts at Arkansas, and there's been a good number of them. I mean, Fouché and Brooks didn't stick around, but they were good while they were here, or pretty good. And, Scooter Harris, and there's a longer list than that.
Tom Murphy with us here, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Whole Hog Sports. Dan Enos had a house full of recruits in, and particularly Walker White came in and visited this weekend. What do you think that Dan Enos needs to do to brand himself at Arkansas in this first year? He's not necessarily known as an RPO guy, even though he's made the shift to that. Does he need to become the guy that's known as a developer? Does he need to become the guy that is known as an RPO guy? What do you think is important in the next 8 or 10 months for Dan Enos as he establishes himself?
Well, I think basically to show that KJ Jefferson doesn't have any kind of drop off, that that he works flawlessly into Dan Enos' schemes. And I mean, what a nice guy what a nice stable of players to inherit here at Arkansas. And it's just about getting the verbiage correct. And, he already has the reputation of being a great quarterback developer. And you look at who he worked with at Bama. Both of he worked with Tua at Bama and then Talia at Maryland. He was coach, I believe, when he had the Mac Jones and Jalen Hurts combo with Tua there. So he comes to Arkansas already having been known as a guy who can develop quarterbacks. So it's just a matter of getting on the same page with K.J. Jefferson and having a productive scheme. And Arkansas 2015 with Dan Enos here, a fantastic run team. That was Alex Collins' big year, 1,500-plus yards, the third highest rush total in Arkansas history, veteran quarterback in Brandon Allen. So there are similarities between that team and what Dan Enos inherits. They got to plug in some guys on the offensive line where if it's 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, you feel very confident you're going to make that. And I think with last year's team, the 3rd and shorts and the 4th and shorts weren't always guaranteed. It became a little bit of a bugaboo for them. So I don't know. I think Dan Enos' reputation is already kind of established, and it's just a matter of how does he plug into KJ and the rest of these quarterbacks.
You lose Ricky Stromberg, you lose Luke Jones, kind of have to retool the offensive line a little bit. Tom, do you have an expectation who's going to start up front this year?
Well, I mean, when we see what Emarion Harris did in the bowl game, that's a good start. And then you got Andrew Chamblee, you've got some other guys who they recruited in recent years, Devin Manuel, who's apparently has been on the brink. I've said it with you guys numerous times. I think those kind of guys need to get more playing time in games. And does it come at the expense of, losing a series on offense? I don't know, but you've got to find out. And I just feel like this coaching staff got into the mode of there was hardly a series that you could, quote, take off last year because of the difficulty of the schedule. Maybe in some of the early games this coming year, you can play some of your backups. But I think it's important. Sam Pittman's talked about that himself, that when you're a backup, you always question, am I good enough? I can run with these guys. I need to go prove myself. And I think that applies to the O-line. I think it applies in the secondary, at linebacker. There's several positions where I think it's very important that some of your backup guys get, the feel for what it's like. And, let's just say an Isaiah Satania, if his ankle had been right, to get him in, target him in some games, things like that.
Tom, on the subject of the schedule, last 3 years you've had the toughest schedule in college football. This year you got 3 cupcakes and BYU at home as your non-con, so it's a lot easier. How much do you think that helps Pittman in year 4?
Well, I mean, of course, they wouldn't call them cupcakes, but they're games that Arkansas should win. And quite honestly, they should have beaten Liberty and swept their non-conference schedule last year. So they've been pretty good. I mean, the Missouri State game didn't play out like maybe we thought, but I think it's important to be able to, know that if you can win 3 conference games and sweep your non-conference, you got 7 wins right there. So it's big, and I think winning tight games has got to be the key focus of this offseason. What do we do to get better in one-score games?
I was looking at something that I don't know if you guys know. Jacob Davis works over at Arkansas 5. And he was reading a tweet he'd put out last night, and there's 7 different quarterback records KJ could break that he's listed here. Most of them are Matt Jones, Brandon Allen, or Tyler Wilson's records. But you look at and he could basically reset the record book at Arkansas next year, is what KJ could do in total offense, touchdowns, quarterback rushing yards, quarterback rushing touchdowns, passing yards. I mean, all of these numbers, Tom, are within reach, reasonable reach. And I think the question becomes, where do you put KJ historically in this program if he owns 5, 6, 7 career records in his time at Arkansas?
Well, that's a great point, and maybe that's something KJ's thought about a little bit, his legacy. I think Arkansas fans are very, happy that he decided to come back. I did see that tweet. One of them I think is unreachable. I think it's quarterback rushing yards because he'd have to have 1,000 something. And I don't think the anticipation is, we're going to run KJ almost twice as much as we did the last 2 years.
Yeah, you need 11:07 there to break Matt Jones' record of 26:35.
Yeah, so that one, I'm going to call that one out of reach. But, total offense and all those kind of things, passing touchdowns. It can be done. And I think having a balanced offense will help him achieve some of those. And they certainly were balanced under Kendall Briles. You can't argue that. And I don't mean in terms of number of plays called, but the yardage of it was unbelievably close in the 230s. And by the way, Arkansas has really never come close to having an offense that averaged 230 on both sides of the ball, and they did that last year. It's just a matter of maximizing when you get in the red zone. So, yeah, KJ, I think he needs to take another step forward in his leadership capability, how quickly he makes his reads and things like that. And I don't know. I feel like I'm a pretty tough critic, but I give him a little bit of a pass in the Liberty game because we know he had to take a shot for the pain, and you could just see he wasn't himself. And when he wasn't, Liberty put forth a great scheme and turned in, the upset of the year as far as the Razorbacks were concerned.
Yeah. Hey, before you go, let's talk a little bit of basketball. Arkansas wins over LSU at home. Now they got a tough challenge ahead of them with a trip to Waco and to take on Baylor. Just can Arkansas win this game? What's your expectation with a tough road assignment in this SEC Big 12 challenge?
Yeah, that is very tough. Among the toughest in the conference. I think they're going to have to shoot as good as they did in the last couple games or even better. And I think their defense has got to turn into offense a little more. I mean, we started to see that. I think it was really cool that Ricky Council comes back in and is much more of a facilitator. I mean, he threw some great lob passes in that game. And I think hopefully that opens up the door to maybe people playing off Ricky just a little bit more, because as much as I like what he did, like in the Greensboro game when they had to have it down the stretch, he just did some one-on-one stuff that worked out. I think maybe he had become a little too reliant on that. So Devo Davis's shooting obviously has been a huge uptick the last couple of games. But I do think some of that is a product of playing Ole Miss and LSU, two of the bottom-rung teams in the conference. This is going to be a much tougher assignment, but I think it does help them gain some confidence. And honestly, they should be on a 3-game winning streak, because I thought that Missouri game was theirs.
All right. Tom, have a great weekend. Have fun watching the football and the basketball, and we'll catch up with you on Tuesday of next week.
Yeah, all right. Go Chiefs.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts.